Hi, I'm Antonia, and I made a stop motion animation film with little to no experience, and this is how I did it. So I have dabbled in a few different forms of animation before, but I've never actually made a clay animation film. And about a year ago, I decided that I was finally going to try it. So I'm currently working on a stop motion animation film. So I spoke with my good friend Ellie Stoughton, who's an aspiring production designer, and we started to build the idea of the kind of world we wanted. We looked at inspirations such as Coraline and a lot of Tim Burton films. Not only did we obviously look at animation films, but we also looked at real life films so that we could get inspired by everything and not just copy off of something that had already been done in animation. Soon enough it became clear that we were drawn to a magical, fantastical style of setting. So we fully immersed ourselves into investigating our inspirations and researching how to bring these to life. Now at this point, everything had been put together, tests had been done, and we were ready to start shooting the week of March the 15th. And well, we all know what happened then.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
The pandemic. This now meant that I unfortunately had no access to the room I was using, the equipment I was using, and the software that was helping me out with making the animation smoother. Now you might think at this point that it would be quite reasonable to just give up, but I was determined. I really wanted to continue making a stop motion film, however it did now feel a little bit odd making a film that felt now a little bit trivial without acknowledging what was going on in the world. Fortunately, I was isolated with my production designer Ellie, and she felt the same way and agreed to help me take this project in a new direction. The environment is something that we are both really passionate about, and I was curious to see how it was being affected by all of this. I found a few articles about how the Amazon rainforest was now more vulnerable than ever since its protectors were stuck inside. This was the same for one of their endangered animals, jaguars. At this point, the largest set that was made for the previous project was actually a forest, so everything aligned pretty nicely for us to then be able to adapt that forest into this new project, where I wanted to shed light on what was going on in a light-hearted, easily absorbable way.
Originally, obviously, it's a fantastical world that we're creating, very much influenced by whimsical styles and also our own imagination a lot, but then we went from that to creating the Amazon rainforest, which is obviously a real place, so it had to be grounded in realistic research. It was a bit of a shift because we kind of could just do whatever we wanted on the first one, within reason obviously, but we had a lot more artistic license in whether we wanted the trees to curl around or light up, whereas the trees in the Amazon rainforest obviously don't light up.
So I got started on a new storyboard and further experimented with different kinds of clay. Now, after all this time and practice, I think I got the hang of using the clay and the style that worked best for me. This time I had a new system. I would wrap the clay around a ball of aluminium foil so that it was light on the inside and could hold its own weight. Then I would bake some of the features so that they would turn solid. Then I wouldn't have to worry about them being damaged or too distorted with the maneuvering of them while I filmed. Now, another thing that couldn't possibly be ignored at this time is, of course, the Black Lives Matter movement. And through all of this, I realised that I had ignorantly made all white characters so far. I hope to always be inclusive, especially when it comes to things that are aimed for children, as Karen Rupert Tolliver reminded me in her speech accepting an Oscar for Hair Love, how important representation is in children's entertainment.
Because in cartoons, that's when we first see our movies, and it's how we shape our lives and think about how we see the world.
So the studio that I no longer had access to, I had to recreate in my parents' house. Thank you, Mum and Dad. So I tried to shut off any light that could come in to keep the lighting consistent so that the stop motion would flow nicely. Then I ordered a clicker online so I could take photos without actually having to touch the camera to make sure that I wasn't accidentally moving anything mid-scene. Although this film mainly followed animals, I still had a few scenes that I had to film with actual humans, and in one of them still had to walk. So I had to find a new way to make them move smoothly without the table and the magnets and the software that I was using before. I had previously seen in my research that people in animation would use rigs. However, they seemed quite time consuming since you had to edit them out of each shot, and there are about 24 frames per second in a stop motion animation film, so that would have taken quite a long time to edit. However, since in this film the only scene that I needed where a human would walk was only a few seconds long, I thought, why not? I started this project wanting to experiment with animation and see how stop motion was done, and I thought if this is one of the ways that they did it, then I wanted to give it a go. And considering most of the tests that I had done were with different equipment, I think this turned out really well. As well as editing out the rig, I also edited some eye movements and some other things in post-production to really tie everything together, and soon enough my film was almost done. I was able to then show my peers and lecturers, and I got some useful feedback as well as some suggestions, such as maybe adding some real archive footage of deforestation in the Amazon rainforest to maybe make it more impactful and remind the audience that this is a real situation. So I had a look and I found some really good footage, and I'm so glad that I added it in because I think it really did give it that extra gripping, emotive touch to the film. As well as being a big educational journey for me, it was super exciting to see all these things come to life the way they did. Like the water, for example, which I used hair gel for. That was one of my favourite things that I tried and it worked. Learning all about this side of animation that I'd never tried before was super interesting, and especially doing it on a topic that I'm so passionate about. I really look forward to doing something like this again.